Hello, my most amazing artists. Today you're going to be glazing your ceramic cake boxes. Now, glaze is just like when you go to a place to paint ceramics or paint a pot like Whim Wham Studio. It's the kind of paint that has to go back into the kiln, and it actually changes color a little bit. So you'll notice on the lids of your glazes, they are a lot shinier, brighter, and more pigmented than the colors that are in liquid form in that glaze tray. Now, the reason is they go through a chemical change and physical change through the kiln, and they become better and brighter and a little bit darker sometimes, or more saturated with more color. So compare the lid to the color so you know what color you're using. You might think that you're using a yellow that's like very pastel, but it's going to come out super bright yellow. So make sure you check the lid and do not mix the glazes. You notice I just had to clean the white out with a sponge because somebody went from the teal to the white. Now you can paint everything except for the very bottom. You'll notice that this cup is totally food safe. I could drink out of it, but that's because the glaze got everywhere except for the very bottom. Same thing with this bowl. I used almost every single color from this rainbow set on this bowl here, so you'll be able to see how that purple is the biggest change. It says purple right there, but it looks like a light pink, but it comes out bright purple. And this yellow is the yellow that's in that glaze tray. It comes out super bright. So maybe check these out, check out the lid to see what colors you're using so that you end up getting the color results that you want out of your cake box. Now you want to make sure that you always do 3 layers of glaze. You want 3 so that you have a dark color. If you only do 1, it's going to come out showing your brush strokes and be very light. So you can layer or mix colors together as long as you're not mixing inside of the glaze tray. Also, you'll notice my little sample got broken, so please be very careful and hold these over your tray. When you get them back, don't drop them. I would paint them right on top of this little wax paper right here so that you can mix your own colors on that little paper if you need to. You're going to have a variety of brushes and some sponges. That is because glaze and water don't mix well. We want to make sure that your glaze ends up nice and thick and colorful, so that's why you don't have a water cup to wash your brushes. You can dab them on the sponges. You're going to get your cake boxes back, and they've gone through a change, and they are white now. They're no longer clay, they are ceramic. If I were to drop them in a bucket of water, they would not turn back to clay or mud. It would stay exactly the same. It would just be wet and full of water, but it would dry out and look just exactly the same. Now, I want to paint everywhere except for anywhere that's touching the table right now. So that means the bottom of the top that has my name on it and the bottom of the box that has my name on it. Those are the 2 parts that have to go back in the kiln and sit there. What's going to happen if you accidentally paint the very bottoms of both pieces is that glaze is going to get really hot, it's going to start to melt, and then when it cools off, it's going to be very glassy. It's going to have a glassy texture to it and very glossy. So what's going to happen is I'm going to open the kiln and it's going to get stuck to the bottom of the kiln. So make sure you do not paint the very bottom of that lid and the very bottom of the box. But you want to paint everything else. You want to make sure that you paint everything, even if you want it white. Start out with white on everything if you know that you want a base layer that's just shiny and white. If there's anything you want to leave white, you can't just leave the clay color. You have to paint it with the white glaze on top. That makes sure that it's sealed, it's food safe, and it's just going to have a better looking result too than that chalky box texture. Then for the crust, I'm going to use the cashew color. Now, if this is not the right color for me, if I want my crust to be more golden brown on this key lime pie, then I can start to mix colors. I just can't mix them in the ice cube trays right here. I have to make sure that I mix my own unique color of glaze on my cake box, like directly on the ceramic, or I can mix them on my paper. But always cleaning off my brush in between because glaze is very expensive. These glazes for a whole class set of them cost about $300, so you want to make sure that I don't have to clean it out and refill it. However, if you do run out of a color or if it's a little too dried out from having the lid off, I can refill colors. When I go to change my color, I want to wipe my paintbrush on that sponge. I can wipe off the bristles on it and then go get a new color. If your sponge gets really dirty, you can go to the sink and wash it out, squeeze it out, get the color out, and get a new one. Now you'll see I'm mixing the colors directly on my ceramic box top. So I'm mixing in a little bit of Cracker Jack brown to give that golden brown crust texture over top of that light tan cashew color. But if I wanted to mix a color that was all one color and not just layers of color, like a golden texture on top from being in the oven, then I could mix it just like this. Just making sure that I dab off my brush before I go to the next color so I don't get the darker brown in the lighter tan color, because the next person who uses them wants to make sure that those colors are exactly how they are out of the bottle. So I can mix as many colors as I want on top of there. Just remember, you have to have 3 layers of color. So that means I already have 2 now on the crust. Maybe I'll go over one more time with another color later. Now for the pie, I've already done 1 coat of white, even though it doesn't look like it. So now my next layer is going to be a light yellow. That's going to be because a lot of key lime pies are like a little bit of a yellow green, very, very light. So I'm going to mix those 2 colors, including the limelight version, to get a very light key lime pie color. I can do it directly on the cake box or right here on the paper to get the right color. Just remember that you want to mix colors that go well together. If you mix all the colors together, you're going to end up just with brown. So if you mix 2 opposite colors like pink and green, that's also going to give you brown. So just beware if you're mixing colors that you're doing the right mixing. So for example, yellow plus green makes yellow green. Or you can add white to make a color light as well. So now I have 3 layers. I started out with white, I added yellow, and then green. So I'm done with that layer. Now I'm going to paint my limes. Even though limes are looking like lemons right now with that yellow, I know that it's just my base first layer to make sure I get into all the cracks and crevices and textures of the box, because when it comes out of the kiln, any spots that are left white are going to be very, very obvious. If you don't sink your brush down into them right now, it's going to be really obvious when they come out of the kiln. So you want to make sure that if you need to change your brush size, that you get a smaller brush so you can get into all those details. Now we will have detail bottles that you can use to do very small details later, and I'll show you that last. So first is painting everything a base color. If you want something like sprinkles or polka dots on your box or it to say a word, that comes very last. You have to get at least 2 colors of base coat on there, or 1 color, but 2 layers of base coat, and then you can do details with the detail bottles last. It would be really hard if you started out painting sprinkles and then had to paint around every single one to get the whole box painted. So paint everything with simple colors first, and then you can go back and add details like I'm doing now with various colors like the dark green on the rims of the lime or the outside of it, and then I can paint the bottom of my box. The reason I painted the lid of it first is because the lid is the top. People are going to pay the most attention because it has the most detail on it. The bottom of the box, it could just be painted all 1 color if I ran out of time. So I'm going to leave that for last, and now I'm painting the inside first. The reason I'm painting the inside first is because that is what's going to make it food safe. Technically, I could eat or drink out of this box if I wanted to. I could store candy in it, I could eat out of it, whatever you want, as long as you get that glaze into all of the little cracks of the box. I've already painted 1 layer, going down for my 2nd layer, and then I'll do my 3rd. You'll notice the glaze dries super, super fast. The clay is absorbing all of the moisture from the glaze. It's going to go and suck it right up. So it's going to dry really fast. You'll be able to paint your layers almost immediately after painting the first one. So I'm going to switch it up, and after I do that Cracker Jack brown or that cashew brown, I'm going to paint white on the outside of the box first to give it that first layer for my key lime pie color. Now this white looks a little dirty because it looks like somebody got black mixed in the white and it made gray. So please make sure that you don't mix the colors up, because this could show on my box. Luckily I'm mixing colors over top of it and layering it, so it should not matter too much. It should come out okay. You get the idea by now. So I fast forwarded the video a little bit, so now I'm going over with yellow for my 2nd layer, and then I'll do my 3rd layer as a little bit of that lime color. I'm saving the bottom so I can paint a crust on the very bottom. If your cake has layers or you have chocolate inside of it or berries, you might want to think about painting it all 1 base color first, and then going back and adding the detail of that line of color or filling inside. If you have layers that are all different colors, that's great. Paint them with each layer a different color. Just don't forget, you have to do 3 layers of that color on top of each other. 3 is going to give the best color when these come out of the kiln. And just a reminder, do not paint the very bottom. If you accidentally get paint somewhere where you don't want it, it will sponge off of the box. It takes a little scrubbing, but it will eventually come off of there if you make a mistake that you need to get rid of. But just remember, glaze is expensive. We don't want to just start all over. So do your best work, use your time efficiently because you've got a lot to glaze and a little bit of time. We want to make sure that you get these finished so we can put them back into the kiln. They come out of the kiln and it's something that you can keep forever and take home with you. All right, awesome artists, the very last thing I'm going to do is show you what you can do with your detail bottles if you'd like to when you're done. These detail bottles have a very small tip. That way you can go through and draw on or add details. There are little color swatches on every bottle, just like there are in your glaze tray. They're actually the same exact colors that are in the 2 glaze trays. It's just that I only have a certain amount of these detail bottles. I can't put them out on every table. So if you wanted to write your name, just test it out first. I forgot to do that on the black paper to make sure it's flowing right and not just going to explode on you. Sometimes those bottles do get clogged if the lids are left off. And then I can test it, there you go, and do some polka dots, whatever you want. It's just going to make it a lot easier than using a brush so that you can add details like dots or sprinkles or hot fudge on top, or you could write something if you want. That's going to make it a lot easier. Just put the caps on when you're done. And make sure you put them back up at my glaze counter when you're done so other students could use those colors as well, since I only have a specific number of each color, which is 1. I don't have many more than just 1 per color. So make sure that you return them so others can use them. I'm even going to add some texture details to show that it's cake. Maybe I'll go through with the golden brown to add some crust, make it look like it's more of a cake texture through here. I can do all kinds of things to make it look more realistic. All right, awesome artists. I cannot wait to see these when they come out of the kiln. Have fun today.